Hi everyone, this is Zen from demostrate. So this video is an extension of what we had previously, where we were talking about integrating PingID with Windows login. And in that video, we're demonstrating like a simulated end-user device using PingID as multi-factor authentication for their Windows login. And the question raised by one of our clients was, what about for VDI and remote apps? Can we do the same over those scenarios? And the answer is yes, which is what this video is all about. I have here a simulated environment with remote desktop setup. So here is my environment with all the components installed and along with 3 collections. So the first collection, this dedicated VDI, is a 1:1 relationship where we have every user having their own dedicated VDI. And then we have one that is of a pool VDI, where it's a 1:many relationship. Whenever any user logged out, it's going to roll back to like a fresh state. And we have some remote apps, which is just a calculator and a notepad for demonstration purposes. All of them will be protected by PingID for Windows login. Now let's go over to the overview and I'm just going to quickly describe this. I have the PingID baked into part of the golden image. So regardless of whether it's going to be cloning a VDI pool image or a VDI dedicated image, it's going to have PingID pre-installed during its startup process for the first time. And subsequent logins will already have the PingID MFA flow already pre-built in. And for the session host, we will have to install PingID on the session host itself. So any application that has been hosted by the session host will require the user to do a PingID authentication for multi-factor authentication before they can access those protected applications. Just let me switch over to the remote host. So over here in my Hyper-V environment, we have a couple of VDIs. These are for pool image with the rollback checkpoint. And the dedicated machines don't have checkpoint because they are meant for 1:1 relationship. And as I mentioned earlier, the VDI template is the golden image with the PingID already pre-built in, so that when it clones an environment and it starts up for the first time, it's going to install PingID automatically. And as for users, we have I have 3 test user 1, 2, and 3. And over at our Ping1 environment, we have already got them configured. Ping1, this is my Ping1 sandbox environment for this POC. I have these 3 test users. As long as the username matches, the authentication will be able to correlate. So another question was raised. What if I don't want to use that PingID mobile application? Suppose my organization, everyone has been using Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. Can I use that as well? Or can I use that instead of PingID? Well, the answer is yes, you can, but it won't be the push notification mechanism. It'll be this other one that I've created here. So if we look at the policy, I've added one more other than the PingID mobile. There's this authenticator app for time-based OTP. So with this, your user can onboard themselves using either Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, any of the authenticating apps that can support time-based OTP, and that will work for them. Next. So now I can move on to the actual demonstration. Let me share my screen with this. So we have here the RD web. So the users will be logging with their domain account, username and password. So let me first log in with as test user 1. So once I logged in, I'll be able to see the work resources allocated to my account. And we have here a couple of remote apps. One is a calculator, one is just a notepad. And we have the dedicated VDI and another shared VDI. And on the right side here, I have my mobile device mirroring here using EasyCast. So let's try the VDI collection first. it's going to attempt the 1FA authentication followed by the PingID authentication. So I have my PingID onboarded for this user account. That's why it's prompting for that yes or no. So the push notification, I'll answer it as yes, and it's going to accept authenticated. And here you'll be logging in. Since this is the first login done for this user in this shared VDI, it's going to take a while. So let me fast forward. All right. So the login is done and I'm able to use this VDI now, no issues. Even if I were to do like a lock, trying to log back in or try to unlock myself, I'm still going to have to do that second factor authentication as well. Yes. Okay, so that's that for this. Let's sign out and we'll try the other. Let's look at the dedicated VDI as well. Now you notice there's this button here, change device. That's because for this test user one, I've onboarded myself on both authentication methods, both the PingID push notification as well as the authenticator app using TOTP. So now if I were to switch over to use authenticator app, sign off, it's going to expect me to enter the 6-digit PIN based on my test user one. So let me choose test user one and 749876. Sign on. Yeah, the dedicated VDI is faster because that profile has already been created in this environment. Let's try one of the remote apps. Let's try the calculator. Usually it takes a while, but if we do the show details, it should be able to show that screen again. Yes. Yep. And my remote app, the calculator is up and running for my use. And let's close this. Now, if I were to switch over to test user 2, so I'm now test user 2. And if I were to, let's say, try the VDI collection, notice it comes straight to the Authenticator app without prompting for the PingID authentication, because for this user, I've only onboarded the TOTP for test user 2. And there's no change device button available for me to switch to another authentication method because that's the only one available for this user. Now let's switch over to test user 2, 432, 223. Okay. Yeah. The authentication is successful. How about let's try one of the super editor app. If it takes a long time to load this, just do a show details and it will appear. So now we can do 529845, sign on. Successful logged in, and it should show, yes, my super editor is available. What if there's a user who has not onboard any of the multi-factor authentication? So I have a test user 3 to showcase this. Test user 3. Let's try the VDI collection. Yep. All right, so what happened is the PingID credential provider went ahead and looked into our Ping1 environment, found this user, but realized this user does not have any authentication method enabled, and it's going to throw this error out. And I can't proceed. I can close this, and this page will just terminate. Same goes for any of the remote app as well. Let's say I try this remote app as well. It does the same thing. The PingID credential provider is going to look into our Ping1 environment to see if whether this user has any kind of authentication method available, so they can show the right screen. But unfortunately, there is none, so it shows just the error. So what this user has to do is, so I have to go over to my self-service URL and log in using test user 3. Over at the authentication page, you can see that there's no authentication method created. And let's go ahead and add a method. So I can choose to add the authenticator app. And let me scan this. I'll need to enter the code. 40957H. So if there's only one of the authentication method, that will be set as a default automatically. Now I can add another method. Maybe I can add a PingID mobile authentication as well. Let's scan this. And that is paired successfully. By stating which one is the default, that will determine for the authentication which one will be shown first. And you can still have that button with the change device to switch between the different authentication methods. All right, let me go back to the. So we can straight away do a VDI login for this user. And now it's able to show this because we have our TOTP being set as a default. So this page didn't show the default first. We can, of course, do a change device like what we did earlier. And we can switch to the PingID authenticator, but we'll just leave it as the authenticator app for now. So let's try login, 725, sign in. And now it's able to carry on with the profile creation for this user. At the same time, we can try and load the application. This time, let me switch over to use PingID. Yes. So the remote app is here, and this is still going on. And that's all for this user. Let me switch this, close this off. Let me swing back to, let's say, test user 2. I suppose now you might be wondering, why don't we just do the second factor authentication at the web client itself? In that way, we are supposedly doing the second factor authentication prior to them accessing the application. While that makes sense, but what if users are able to bypass this? For example, let me log in as the test user 2. What if somehow there's another avenue for them to bypass this web client? They can go directly into the VDI. Which is the case for some dedicated VDIs. They are allowed to do remote desktop connection. So let's say for this user, Sorry, for this VDI, we can log in as test user 201.664. And I'm able to find the IP address. Oh, sorry. 172.17.2.72, and I'm gonna try and bypass the web client and just do a direct RTP into that server. I mean, into that VDI. Let me enter NBTRD. That's my domain. Test user 2. And log in using my AD password. So having the second factor authentication inside the endpoint would prevent any sort of bypass the layered mechanisms above it. So no matter how they try to access their environment, they are going to have to go through this second factor authentication process. Just log in with 5, 7. And there you go. Even RDP or direct RDP will force them to have to multi-factor authentication because the PingID is part of the credential provider within the OS itself. And that marks the end of our demonstration. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll try to answer them as fast as I can. Thank you. Goodbye.